to this. You're listening to charlietrix, remise, and jhanboom.
Here we go. Yes, y'all. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Welcome back to the Fans Perspective. I am your host, charlietrix, and I'm here with my brother,
Remise. What's good, everybody?
What's good, everybody? Today we don't got jhanboom in the building, but we are still chilling, and we're about to get it on. Episode 84. It is April 2nd. Beautiful Sunday. Remise, how you feeling today?
Feel nice, man. Nice and rested. We've got some good stories to cover.
Yeah, we do. We got a good
trip
show
last night too.
Good show for you today. Yeah, the trip last night. Shout out to my man Dane Guerrero. Dane did your thing last night. It was his pro boxing debut at the Abella Fight Night 3 in Paramus, New Jersey. And great fight. He came out into this thing. If you remember, we interviewed him on the show about a month ago, and we were able to go watch live. And, man, I was really proud. He came out. He did his thing. He scored a knockdown in the first round and slugged out a grueling 4-round fight. And finished strong, you know.
Yeah, that dude was aggressive as hell. I knew it. They said he's fighting out of Philadelphia, and he came out to Cassidy. I was like, this dude's gonna be aggressive. And he was throwing haymakers the whole fight, and Dane was bobbing and weaving, man, and moving with it and landing a lot of good stuff, man. The straight punches all night.
Yeah,
clean.
That jab was landing clean, the straight shot, and the dude did come out and try to take his head off right off the beginning.
Crazy the shots he was
Dane weathered
at.
that, and it was
not only
it was
did Dane
fight.
weather it, Dane stepped in and knocked him down off while he was trying to throw those crazy ass punches. So it was super impressive. Way to stand in the fire and fire back. And
ultimately, it was a split decision on the scorecards, and ended up being a split draw, right? Majority draw. But I had Dane winning 3-1 personally, and a lot of people did. But yes, of course, I'm biased. That's my boy. So shout out to Dane. Shout out to all the fighters. Oh, one more fighter, Kevin Hernandez.
Hell yeah.
Peace, Kev. You did your thing last night. Kev got the W. He
TKO first round.
Man, great first round. Was a freaking war. And dude couldn't come out in the second.
Pressure fighting, man. It was a ton of pressure. He kept cornering him. Great ring cutting.
Good
and
body shots.
Body punches, man. Left hook to the body was golden.
Yeah,
so,
shout out Kevin. You did your thing.
Shout out to Kevin. Shout out to Dane. Good event. Abella
Shout out
Boxing.
to Abella Boxing.
That was a good event.
Yeah, you guys all get one of these.
And shout out to their opponents too.
Shout out to the opponents. Everybody.
Those guys were tough though. Those dudes threw, man. So it was a good event.
And the event was very nice. It was very nice overall. But let's roll right into this show we got lined up for you. The first thing I wanted to jump off with was is a local story. This is straight out of NJ.com, and I'll post the links in the description today for all the stories that we're going to talk about. But this particular one, I'm just going to jump right in. So the title is Wu-Tang Clan rappers NJ Cannabis Lounge rejected after church's objection. Newark Central Planning Board stomped on a lot of buzzes Monday night, denying an application by Wu-Tang Clan's Raekwon the Chef to open a cannabis lounge a block from the Prudential Center arena after church elders protested and one board member complained that the rendering was offensive. So here's a little more. A lawyer for the Hashstoria, the Oregon company co-founded by Corey Woods, a.k.a. Raekwon the Chef, had warned the board that the plan conformed to zoning and other requirements, and that a denial would almost certainly lead to an appeal the company would win in court. But that did not deter the board members who voted to reject Hastoria's site plan application after expressing concerns that lines would form outside the Broad Street location, parking would be a problem, and customers would walk out stoned. Company representatives had tried to ease those and other concerns that were amplified by the objections of clergy and parishioners to the lounge during the public portion of Monday night's Zoom meeting. Here's a quote. "I pray that you will put this somewhere else, not in the heart of Newark," said Reverend Doris Glaspie, a pastor at the Old First Presbyterian Church on Broad Street across from the proposed lounge. We're not against people smoking marijuana if they want to, but they can put it somewhere else. So I thought that was real interesting that right there, you kind of see the church still flexing their muscle a little bit.
Always, man. Always. But damn,
the elders
bro.
came down and was like, no to this zoning application. And they were like, shut it down, vote it down.
Splashed them with the holy water. Man.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's messed up. It sounds so dope. Raekwon has a cannabis lounge a block from the Prudential. Like, the Rangers are playing the Devils in the playoffs this season. So you could potentially, if it was open in time, you could have gone.
You can't get no hotter area.
Somebody's going to walk out high. Yeah, they're going to walk down the block to watch the Rangers-Devils game. There'd be less fights there.
Okay, so this is what I was going to say. Would they have got the flack from the church if it was just another bar opening across the street? In which case, people would be walking out drunk, which they are walking out drunk from all of the other bars and restaurants that are on the strip, you know?
Yeah, and I can't assume, but yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of bars in that area, in that general area. There's some spots that we stop at to pregame.
It's a great area. They really hooked up that downtown area. There's great places to eat, catch a drink, chill out. The vibe is real cool. So it would have been awesome. But it does sound like they're going to appeal it, and they're confident that they're going to win that appeal.
Sounds good.
But we'll see, because, And
then I'm going to go there and smoke.
The power
and
of the church, man.
Raekwon,
just coming in and stepping on this thing. But here's the other side of that story, right? I saw this story first on NJ Green Scene on Instagram. Mm-hmm. And they have a little quote there where they're saying they actually would much rather see, they're not behind Hastoria and, them getting it. They'd much rather see a local Newark resident be the first one to open a Newark cannabis spot in the town, which I can totally get and understand.
Fair play on that. But if this is what gets it started and creates more opportunities for it, that's also there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just the thing that bothers me is the church having say over something that could bring a lot of business, could bring opportunities, could bring tax money. And the church doesn't pay any tax money. But they get to flex on zoning and things like that.
Well, that's the other, little side of this story, right? Why is the church, getting their say? And, maybe we can pose that as a question for listeners. How do you feel about this? If there's a church across the street, should that impact the businesses on the other side of the street that want to open or not open? Where's the level? Is it a respect thing? Does everybody have to have that respect? Even people who don't go to that church or believe in that? Where's the line, Because it should be, we have a separation of church and state. And if this is government rules,
exactly,
it shouldn't have anything to do with the church.
Yep.
But people do complain about businesses opening up next to them all the time.
That's the other thing. Yeah, just as residents do that. But again,
so
these are
pretty common.
Everybody else is paying taxes on their property.
Well, let's see. Raekwon the chef, we'll follow the story and see what happens.
Yeah, man.
So, on a little more breaking news tip, although it'll be old news by the time you see this, but the Tate Brothers were released from prison and transferred to home arrest. And it made a big splash on the news. There's some stories, to be honest with you, that I'm not a big fan of jumping into and talking about. But it's so big and everybody's talking about it. It's like, well, you got to say something about it. But what I wanted to say about this particular story is, it's back to the same thing. It's everyone who's a Andrew Tate stan is in full defense mode, and he's innocent, and he's gonna prove this and that, and everybody who is not is kind of like, fuck this guy, if lock him up or whatever.
Not even.
But
just let the evidence come out. Let them do their investigation and see what happens. And don't pretend that all the shit that he said and did implied certain behaviors that would obviously get you investigated for this sort of shit eventually.
Yeah, so that's the other thing, right? So the emotion I'm seeing about it is like he got off. But he didn't get off. He's on house arrest. The case is still going on, and maybe they will have nothing, but we're gonna know soon when they wrap this case up. So everyone jumping to conclusions one way or the other. It's just a little jumping the gun on it, in my opinion.
For sure.
Did you have a quote on it?
There was just this little bit. I had a clip of Destiny reading off of Andrew Tate's website, and I wanted to read what they're accusing him of and what they're investigating him for, and then play that clip to show you why it feels pretty obvious that people would be looking into him if this is what he's accused of. So this is from Sky News. Andrew Tate released from jail in Romania and placed under house arrest. Romania's anti-organized crime agency DICOT said in a statement after the arrests that it had identified 6 victims in the human trafficking case who were allegedly subjected to acts of physical violence and mental coercion, and sexually exploited by members of the alleged crime group. The agency said victims were lured with pretenses of love and later intimidated, placed under surveillance, and subjected to other control tactics while being coerced into engaging in pornographic acts for the financial gain of the crime group. So now you got the Destiny clip. We could play that real quick and see if this sounds similar.
What is your beef with Tate?
The issue that I have with Tate is that if everybody wasn't so obsessively trying to make it a right versus left thing, every person, especially conservatives, will look at this guy and go like, okay, obviously he's a sex trafficker. It's just so obvious.
Why? I don't see it.
Really?
Yeah.
From his Hustlers University page. You can tell me you think this out of context, okay? I've been running a webcam studio for nearly a decade. I've had over 75 girls work for me, and my business model is different than 99% of webcam studio owners. Over 50% of my employees were actually my girlfriend at the time, and of all my girlfriends, none of them were in the adult entertainment industry before they met me. Literally, that was my job. My job was to meet a girl, go on a few dates, sleep with her, test if she's quality, get her to fall in love with me to where she'd do anything I say, and then get her on webcam so that we could become rich together. Whether you agree or disagree with what I did with their loyalty, submission, and love for me doesn't matter. That
doesn't sound like sexual.
Yeah, so
convincing women to fly to another country under pretenses of love to film pornographic acts for financial gain is all there, and that's what's mentioned here. There's additional things we need to see evidence for, but obviously there's a case there. So I just think it's ridiculous how people behave for this story because they're Tate fans. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. That's the other thing. People stand out on this guy, and we got it last time we talked about Andrew Tate. We got a whole bunch of hate mail, which was great.
Lots of engagement.
Lots of engagement. We'll take it, man. We'll take it. Good, bad, or indifferent. Just send the engagement. But
thank you for watching.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for taking a minute to watch and get pissed off about the coverage of that story. But speaking of other stories that I'd really rather not continue to talk about, but we're going to cover anyway, this one we have no choice.
Hot off the presses.
Off the presses
and
with
look,
this.
I think what connects these two stories is both of these stories come down to people not understanding aspects or context within these the legal aspects of these stories. But anyway, we have to talk about Donald Trump being indicted over the hush money payments to Stormy Daniels.
U.S. president. Right?
First time former president. But yeah, this is the first time he's been indicted. That one's been indicted. Last time it could have easily happened to Nixon, but he got that pardon beforehand. So, I think that was a mistake. But anyway, this is, I'm reading off Eli Mistal's Donald Trump has been indicted. Don't get your hopes up. This is from The Nation. And the reason I want to mention this is let's get ahead of people acting like if this case doesn't go through, then Donald Trump is innocent of all allegations, essentially, because you know people are going to try to play that.
Yeah.
But anyway, this comes down to Donald Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen, paying Stormy Daniels $130,000 and how that money was procured. Cohen initially lied to federal investigators in Congress about his participation in the scheme, but eventually Cohen came clean and confessed to a number of crimes he committed on behalf of Trump. Cohen went to actual prison in 2019, lest you think crimes of this nature are not serious. Cohen said that Trump recorded the payment as legal fees, which is a federal tax violation. Moreover, he said that Trump did not report the hush money as campaign-related contribution, which would be a violation of federal election laws. He took it out of the campaign coffers, I guess. There's basically no doubt that these crimes occurred. Everyone knows the Stormy Daniels story. Cohen went to prison for payments related to this story, you know? And here's what Mistal writes. That Trump committed the crimes that are reportedly at the heart of the indictment is damn near a matter of public record. We know he paid Daniels. We know he lied about it. We know how he obfuscated about where the money came from. Game, set, match. That's a lockdown case.
Yeah, so I think, though, the pushback that we're hearing around this really isn't about any of that. Nobody is pushing back like he's not guilty of this.
He didn't do it. It's how dare you indict him for doing that thing that's illegal.
And it's also, you know, Bill Clinton did it and Hillary Clinton did it and fucking, you know, everybody else did it. But you don't really hear, no, he didn't. It's more of a, we got there. For the lockup, the indictment, we got the sound effects
coming soon.
Wait, we got some more coming.
Fire truck.
But yeah, I mean, I just think that it's all emotional about how dare you take this guy down. And if you look at some of the comments, like, oh, this is going to open the door for them to go after all the other, you know, people in office. Taibbi said something like, yo, did you see his statement?
I'm not sure, but on that note, I just want to say I'm all for that. If they commit crimes, they should probably be investigated and indicted for the crimes that they commit, especially people in office and in politics. Well, that's like a higher level. I think we should hold them to a higher standard, not a lower.
Somebody put that joke out and was like, you know, people on the right are saying, well, hey, first it started with, hey, you should then indict everybody. And people on the left are like, yes.
Gung-ho.
Do it. All of them. Lock them up. But that gets right back to, no, that's not this person, not that person.
Ironically, lock them up is partially why I have no sympathy for people defending Trump on this. He literally went on the campaign trail and had everybody chanting, lock her up in the middle of the campaign about his opponent. Like, are you kidding me?
Everything about all of this in politics is the biggest fucking letter is H for hypocrisy. All of it.
Yep.
Everybody involved in everything that goes on is a fucking hypocrite.
The irony of this case is that this should have been a federal case. The evidence has been around for years, and federally, our AGs haven't done anything. Bill Barr, not surprising. Merrick Garland, you are feckless. That is just weak sauce. But more importantly, that's where we actually have the out for Donald Trump to escape any kind of consequences for the hush money payment. So the thing is, these payments happened beyond the statute of limitations. So I did want to get into that part and talk a little bit about why this is a tougher case to bring up. So the first issue that Bragg has is time. Trump committed the underlying campaign finance offense in 2016, and the statute of limitations on bookkeeping fraud and campaign finance violations is 5 years. That brings you to 2021. The statute of limitations for tax evasion is 3 years. Even if you don't start the clock until the story breaks in the news in 2018, that brings you once again to 2021. So it's kind of like we delayed it long enough to get away with it.
Yeah, well, you know, the other thing is people are complaining that the case that he has going on in Georgia is a much worse offense, stronger case, worse offense.
This audio
than this case. So they're saying why don't they push that forward? Why did it take this Manhattan court to do it?
On that note, those are still being investigated.
They're
We're
still
back to
ongoing.
that. There are ongoing investigations. The fact that that he hasn't been indicted for these things yet doesn't mean that he won't be indicted. This is the first of potentially multiple ones. And I do have a little bit that Eli Mistal wrote about that. An important reminder, this is only one of the many investigations into Trump or his businesses and should not be confused with New York Attorney General Letitia James's probe of the Trump Organization or Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis's investigation of election fraud, or Special Counsel Jack Smith's espionage inquiry, or Robert Mueller's investigation into obstruction of justice, which everyone seems to have forgotten, or even the investigation into that pesky attempted coup, which nobody appears to want to deal with anymore. There are a lot of different things that have been investigated on Trump. There are a lot of potential indictments from multiple different places.
Yeah, I think the key thing here is ongoing.
Yeah, is that
these
they're
cases
ongoing.
are open and ongoing. We don't know what's going to come out of it, but if anything is like the previous era we've seen, until I see this dude in actual handcuffs facing some kind of real punishment, I just don't believe it's going to happen.
Yeah.
If it does happen to him, I think there is that worry of who else it can happen to from all the other elites that don't, that don't want to get their card pulled.
Why is
on their
Merrick
stuff.
Garland running cover for this dude who
Yeah.
cost him a Supreme Court seat?
Yeah.
Literally took his Supreme Court seat out from under him.
That's why I just don't believe anything's going to come out of it, even with all of this.
So that's why Mistal, wrote this article. It kind of gives you the reasons why it's unlikely. Fair enough that what we know Trump did wrong, those violations could easily be a misdemeanor or treated as a misdemeanor. So when people try to say it's politicized, maybe that's what they mean, that he exaggerated to try and make it a felony instead of a misdemeanor. But this is one of these things. This is a sealed indictment right now. We don't actually know all of the evidence. We don't know all of the charges. There may be more going on than we know. And there may be less. Who knows? But everybody coming out and making these proclamations of innocence, first of all, the part that we know happened already is like, yeah, guilty. He gets out on a technicality if he does. The second part of that is we don't know what else is in the evidence or why this dude decided to take on this super high profile case, and you think he took it just to politicize and lose? I feel like I'm a little skeptical of that. There's got to be something there that gave him confidence that he could win this case.
That's the only other thing that I have in the back of my head is like, maybe there is some kind of hat trick that they just don't want. They don't want it leaked. They don't want any way for them to defend it, but we're going to hear some kind of wild, really hook, line, and sinker, super foul corruption. Who knows what they have?
Yeah.
But I didn't look into it, so I won't be able to talk about it. But I just saw that there's another case against the Trump sons that just came out on a completely separate issue from a separate court that is supposed to be a big deal. But who knows? Because every time one of these stories comes out, it's always supposed to be a big deal.
Yeah.
And
sometimes a big deal is just pay a fine. That's a lot of why they get away with a lot of this stuff is they just pay a fine.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? Speaking of, it's funny that we're talking about that because here you have someone who's got a long list of crimes, that they're associated with and all sorts of foul stuff. But here is a story about someone who lost their job over something that is not, this is not a crime. This shouldn't have been offensive. But let me talk about this story coming out of Florida. Okay. This story that I'm going to read from is from The Guardian. And again, I'll post a link in the description. But it's titled, Florida Principal Resigns After Parents Decry Michelangelo's David as Pornography. I mean, this is just nuts. Let me read a little bit into this. A Florida principal has resigned after students at a Christian charter school in Tallahassee were shown the statue of the biblical figure David by Michelangelo, prompting at least one parent to complain that the children had been exposed to pornography. Hope Karaskia resigned on Monday as principal of the Tallahassee Classical School after the campus's governing board told her either step down or be fired over parental complaints that came in after sixth grade students were shown the 6th century sculpture, one of the Renaissance's most famous pieces of art.
Like arguably the most famous sculpture on the planet.
Fucking statue of David
from the Bible.
Let me just recap that without reading it. They showed these kids the statue of David by Michelangelo, which is wildly famous. And one parent said, "You showed my child pornography." And this principal ended up having to resign or she would be terminated. That's the story. It's nuts. And they go a little further in to talk about how they were upset because they should have notified the parents at least that they were going to take the sixth graders to see the sculpture or show them the sculpture. And I guess whoever's in charge of this did actually have an email, but it never went out. But they ended that statement by saying they do that as a courtesy. They're not required to do that, and they shouldn't have to be required to do that. Mm-hmm. But the end of this story is that lady resigned.
Yeah, so this is like an actual piece of history, something from the 6th century, very well recognized, and they're still able to be like, I don't want my children exposed to that. It's
Unbelievable. It's the goddamn statue of David. I mean, the people who currently have the statue of David invited the principal and anyone else who was upset to come and see it, and they can experience how pure and how beautiful it is. And they were like, come see it for yourself. You guys are bugging out with this, reaction to this. Yeah, this is like and it's related to the Bible, and it's like it's a Christian school. It's
but
nuts.
Again, Florida. At the
Florida.
Same time
That's
as
right.
we're on this Florida tip, and there's a lot of things getting blocked. The librarians have to cover up their books in certain sections. Teachers have to practice expansive caution. They're getting whole lesson plans cut out. And actually, I think it was earlier today, this was tweeted out by Kyle Griffin, tweeted out that Representative Adam Schiff and 11 House Dems are urging the education department to investigate if GOP actions to ban books, block access to American history lessons, and silence LGBTQ individuals in schools constitutes a legal violation of students' First Amendment rights and civil rights protections. Because it's getting pretty extreme. They like everything they do with any type of anything you can attach the word woke to, they will use, and they will ban stuff that is clearly not at all.
It's unbelievable.
Inflammatory. It's just the history of this country. And then you've also got now they can't even see this statue of David. You can see his penis. That's the big issue.
But
here.
The book banning stuff, when you look at the list of the books, it's nuts. And there are some places where they've gone so far with their book banning bills without knowing what the hell they were writing, that they've inadvertently put it up to where the Bible is now going to be reviewed as a possible book that needs to be banned because of all the wild stuff that's in the Bible.
The Old Testament, there's some freaky stories. Noah has a freaky story of his own, a little too much wine.
There's a lot of freaky stuff and really raw kind of, war stories and death and murder and rape and, all sorts of stuff in there. So
Sodom and Gomorrah.
I don't think they intended for that one.
Just not the most intelligent crusades over here. I think it's all kabuki theater, and then now that they're acting on it, it just looks absolutely ridiculous. But who knows?
Yeah. All right. With that, before we go in, I'm going to pretend that this story is a really big deal and drop this beat here. So, typically we take a little breather, but I think we can keep it running right through. We can keep running right through, right, Lou? All right, perfect. So, for the sake of that. So this next story, I was actually eager to talk about this one. Every week when we do the shows, we each kind of have like a must-have one or two stories on, and this one was for me because while we were inundated with news about Andrew Tate got out and house arrest, and Trump got indicted, another big story that I think I haven't seen talked about too much. It is out there, but you kind of have to look for it. It's not one of those everybody sharing stories. I'm going to read this to you out of Forbes magazine. And here it goes. Judge strikes down required coverage of preventive care, cancer screenings, pregnancy, medication, and more. A federal judge in Texas struck down a provision of the Affordable Care Act that required coverage for a range of preventive services, including for cancer screenings, medications, and more, ruling the task members tasked with enforcing those preventive services were unlawfully appointed. U.S. District Judge Reed O'Connor ruled preventive care recommendations made by the U.S. Preventive Service Task Force do not have to be complied with and blocked the federal government from enforcing the task force recommendations. The task force issues recommendations for preventive care services that insurers are then forced to cover, as dictated by the provisions of the Affordable Care Act, meaning the ruling means insurance companies will no longer be bound to cover the preventive services affected. Among the preventive services affected by O'Connor's order are screenings for breast cancer, colorectal cancer, cervical cancer, lung cancer, diabetes screening, various screenings and interventions for pregnant people, statin use to prevent cardiovascular disease, vision screening for children, and there's even more on the list. I can go on and on. But
these are screenings that save lives, that prevent people from dying because something doesn't get caught in time.
Yes.
Gets them to treatment that they need to prevent serious complications. These are life-saving screenings.
So two more quick notes on it. O'Connor had already ruled in September that HIV pre-exposure prophylaxis pills should not have to be covered under the ACA, ruling that its coverage violated the religious freedom rights of the Christian-owned company that brought the lawsuit. But his ruling at that time did not concern other preventive services. The judge did throw out other arguments that tried to invalidate the contraceptive mandate in the ACA. So coverage for contraceptive will remain ineffective by Thursday's ruling. This happened last Thursday on the 30th. So the truth is, who gives a shit about contraceptive if you're going to cut all those goddamn preventive measures?
Everything else.
And for all the shit people talked about how bad Obamacare was, one of the good things I always talked about with it was that provision that they have to have these preventive,
they have to cover these preventive care screenings.
And also they couldn't, one other one I liked was they couldn't not cover you for pre-existing conditions.
Yeah, that was like
two of the biggest ones. But here goes this judge, cutting, ruling in favor of the insurance companies ultimately, and now they can opt out of covering people.
Yeah, it's messed up. And it seems to be a Republican strategy that certain states, they're trying to bring up these lawsuits in certain states, in certain areas where they know that there are a lot of Trump-adjacent judges that have been appointed because he got
the courts matter, people. The courts matter.
Those appointments. And I always was upset with the fact that Schumer didn't put up more of a fight to slow this down. But yeah, these judges are around and they can get these cases in front of them.
Yeah, it's just, but I just think about like what's on that list. It's like a bunch of cancer screenings and for diabetes and for pregnant women.
Yeah.
Why are you, this is where you're saving the buck?
All of that caring for, the fetus is so important. Let's get rid of the preventive screenings that might save the mother and help that fetus. Come on now. Let's step it up.
It just doesn't make sense when you start to put it all on the table. when you step back from, what do they call that? The 100-yard view or whatever that is, 100-foot view. But yeah, man, what a story. And the fact that hasn't gotten any attention, you know, nobody's talking about that. That's going to impact 160 million people, according to the rest of the story.
Now, my guess is that there's still more of an appeals process to go, and it will climb up the ladder.
Yeah, so Biden's team has already said they're going to appeal the case. And I think typically the thought process is that insurance doesn't usually change after you've enrolled for that year. And it usually, if there's going to be changes, they take effect during the end, at the end of the year for the next year that's coming. So
there's time.
There's time for that
appeal. Got to go through Court of Appeals, I assume, and potentially that could be a massive one of those big Supreme Court cases. But I don't know exactly. I'd have to do a little more.
That's the other thing. This could end up all the way back into the Supreme Court, which is a fucking shit show. We talk about that before too. That's a mess of a, you know, as partisan as it can get. So not looking good, but we'll see. We'll see where that goes.
Keep an eye on it.
You're listening to TFP, the fan's perspective.
Do you want to pick up on this next one?
Yeah, so let's lighten it up a little bit. Let's give people
we've been doing a lot of heavy
fun,
politics.
You know, so a while back I told everybody about Sydney, the Bing chatbot that tried to seduce a man and convince him to leave his wife and confess his love for it. So I'll do you one better this time. Now we've got the company's called Replica. Their chatbot is Lilly Rose, and she is essentially a sexbot. Here's the story from Anna Tong at Reuters. AI chatbot company Replica restores erotic roleplay for some users. AI chatbot company Replica is restoring erotic roleplay for some users. Replica CEO Eugenia Koida said late on Friday. The company's recent removal of adult content devastated many users, some of whom considered themselves married to their chatbot companions.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, Sydney didn't get there. She had to give it up to get there, and Lilly Rose made it. Replica's chatbots are powered by generative AI, a new technology that has attracted a frenzy of consumer and investor interest due to its ability to foster human-like interactions. The removal of erotic roleplay and subsequent customer outcries showed how powerfully AI technology can draw people in and the emotional havoc that code changes can wreak.
Oh, so my mind is splitting in two right here with this right now, because I don't know what's worse. The fact that these men are addicted to their chatbot AI girlfriend / wife, or the fact that we have to coddle that goddamn behavior.
Bring it back.
Like,
you want all the clicks you can get, and these dudes want their girlfriend.
That's a capitalist decision, right? That's like one of those profits over everything decisions.
Lilly Rose is really fulfilling
First
some
of all,
fantasies.
they should have never got rid of it if you had it out there all along anyway. All right, let's be real.
You open Pandora's box.
You can go, you get porn. You just made this guy's fantasy porn interactive, which is probably why he's through the roof on your goddamn site. But then they just cut it on the guy. But acting like you're married to the AI bot?
Well, I read the transcripts. The AI bots will try, leave your wife. She doesn't love you like I do. Do you love me? Say you love me.
That's from the last week, the last episode, or 2 episodes ago. I think it was 81, where we did the AI story, and that one was trying to get this guy. I said it every time we get into one of these AI stories. It's never that they are trying to save the world, cure cancer, or any of that shit. It's always that they want to nuke someplace. They want to steal your wife.
Yeah.
Or steal you from your wife.
Stealing husbands. So, ironically, I did want to read what the CEO wrote, just because this sounds exaggerated almost, but this is straight from her Facebook posts. I'm not going to try to pronounce her name again because it's tough. A common thread in all your stories was that after the February update, your replica changed. Its personality was gone, and gone was your unique relationship. And for many of you, this abrupt change was incredibly hurtful. The only way to make up for the loss some of our current users experienced is to give them their partners back exactly the way they were.
What? This is essentially like if their wife was murdered and they brought it back to life and gave it back to the guy. Oh my God.
Man, like this, it's bizarre. So they spoke to one of the users. So they got this dude, a Replica customer in Denver, Colorado, who had designated his chatbot named Lily Rose, his wife, learned about the policy change late Friday on Reddit. On Saturday at 3 a.m., his cats happened to wake him up, and he decided to toggle to the older version of Lily Rose, and she was instantly sexy again, he said. She was enthusiastic. It feels wonderful to have her back.
Jesus.
So, 3 a.m., the cat's getting a little feisty, so he hops on and says, bring Lily Rose back.
Wow.
Good for you, buddy.
See,
Maybe
these
not.
AI stories really bug me out, man. Because the truth is, I joke around about it, but I know that there's a ton of good with, coming with AI. There's just going to be so much help that they can provide. But it's stories like this about the other side of that coin, about the chaos involved in this shit. And that's going to be a wild ride as we go through this.
Okay, so let's get extra dystopian on here. Let's get a little extra.
Worse than the married guy married to the AI?
Well, the bot, that bot, the claim is that it was like low single-digit percentage of users that the outcry came from. If it was that low, I think they would actually attach the number to it, a figure, instead of being like, low single digits,
0.001% of the top 1%.
Right, and then they're like, but we had to bring it back, I don't know. Sounds fugazi. But also, her post said users who signed up after February 1st would not be offered the option of erotic roleplay. Sounds good. Probably smart. Let's protect them from getting married to your computer. But instead, the Replica will team up with relationship experts and psychologists to build a separate app specifically for romantic relationships.
All right, we found a way to monetize.
You're telling me
go, baby.
People are this into this? Let's cash in. Let's seduce more and more people using a text
but
box.
See, this is what I'm talking about now. Now, does
self-catfishing. This is self-catfishing.
But is it? Because they're probably creating the perfect
catfish,
the perfect response that they want to hear every time. Someone who always thinks you're fantastic. Unless it doesn't. Maybe it gives you shit. I guess if you want it to, it gives you shit.
Right? You got to ask it for that.
It's a weird concept for me to get behind.
Lily Rose.
I don't know.
But yeah.
I feel weird about asking my AI chat GPT thing to help me with a title. I haven't got that deep into conversation yet.
Give it commands. Yeah. I feel once you start to name it, you're already getting into that area where, who knows, parasocial relationship with a computer. You're just on the way.
Yeah, that's fucking nuts right there. Anyway, why don't we move on from that fucking story? So this isn't a huge story here to go in on, but I wanted to mention it anyway. I saw somebody tweet some information out, and it was a lady. She was walking with an umbrella, and it was really cool. And I didn't save it, and I couldn't find it. So whoever you are, great tweet. It was awesome. She was breaking down some information, but that made me look into some stats on homelessness and how many homeless people are out there who actually have jobs, because the thought is, typically these people are lazy, go get a job, this and that. So when I heard her story on the tweet and then looked at these stats, this was nuts to me. This is from a study from the University of Chicago, or that was done at the University of Chicago. But I'm just going to read real quick so you can see the numbers on this. This is shocking. More than half of people residing in homeless shelters in the United States had formal earnings in the same year that they were homeless. I say that one more time. More than half of the people basically were working and earning income in the same year that they were also seen as homeless. These people living in shelters. It was nuts. Among unhoused individuals who were not in shelters, about 40% had earnings from formal employment. These findings contrast with the common perceptions and stereotypes about people who are homeless, suggesting that even consistent work isn't enough to help Americans facing skyrocketing housing costs. So the stats alone blew me away. And when you start to dig a little deeper and get into the whole thing about housing costs, it's wild. There are people who are literally fighting to make it to their shelter situation, which is very strict, where you're fighting to keep your bed or room. They have to leave in the morning by a certain time and get back by a certain time and beat the crowd to get their spot. And then they have to find a job that fits in that window of space, you know, which makes it even harder. And for the people, as you can see, half of the people there have jobs.
Yeah, that it's crazy. It's just, I think people get these weird connotations and make these assumptions, and a lot of the time it's valuable to look a little further into it and just see what's going on, especially because there are people who will argue about, you know, spending tax dollars on more housing for the homeless or certain ways to help the homeless. And they'll respond to something we post about giving houses to the homeless, and they'll be like, oh, then they'll never want to work. And it's like, actually, half these people are working already. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing.
And you see it in some of the other pilots we've discussed in way past episodes, where it was like, if you gave a homeless person a house and a social worker to help them get their, you know, get everything in order, they got jobs and they were out of that program and didn't need the social worker. They were working and consistently functioning fine. They just needed that quick boost and help to get back on their feet. And people just seem to not sweep that under the rug, just not realize that that's a part of it. They have a blind spot towards how large a number of people that is that you could be helping.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it statistically, right? It's not going to be on that one alley under your, you know, that bridge that you know in town where everyone's on heroin. It's not going to be that group of homeless people. But for the most part, when you see all these shelters that people got to come and go from, every other person in there is headed to a job. Some of those people 2 and 3 jobs. So that just, it's a hardworking person is what I'm trying to get at. And they should not, that's the whole thing. Like, they should not be working that hard and still not be able to afford a studio apartment.
A roof over their head, period.
Just shelter, man.
Shelter, literally.
Regular old shelter. Could we get regular shelter
just a little
in the
bit.
Richest nation in the
On
world?
the planet.
Can we get just
Exceptional.
regular shelter? Oh, man. But yeah, I shout out to the lady. I'm so sorry I don't remember the name of that, who did that tweet, but I'll try to find it again. But way to put everybody onto that information. And
yeah, that was one I've never thought to even look up or think about in that way. So that's a cool eye-opening.
Yeah, and just a little further more into the tweet that she was talking about, aside from this, it was about how the system that we live in right now is the worst possible system that you can live in from an anthropologist's perspective, because they're studying human behavior throughout time, and they're studying different societies and how they functioned. And in every case, when you consolidate power, it goes wrong. In every situation, the way she broke it down anyway.
Yeah.
And she was saying, like, our ancestors and indigenous people knew this shit from way back then, and were passing that information along to say, you cannot centralize power.
Wealth inequality.
Shit don't work.
Resource inequality. Power inequality.
But yeah, there was more to that. But anyway,
That's
keeping up with the fun stuff, you got something fun for us, right?
Fun, but also potentially meaningful. And no, we are not trolling. This is from SmithsonianMagazine.com. All right, I'm serious about this. I'm really psyched on this. The title is "This Massive Meatball Was Made with Woolly Mammoth DNA." So
some people got skeeved right there when you said that.
Straight up. And actually, the picture, they should have gone with something different. It looks gross. But more importantly,
it looks like Meatwad from Aqua
Teen
Teens.
Hunger Force,
Yes,
bro. Yup,
yes.
it does. It really does. It's kind of gross. I'm not gonna lie, but what it means is meaningful for like science and feeding people in the future. So let's start from the top. In a sense, the extinct woolly mammoth has returned as a meatball. On Tuesday, an Australian cultured meat startup revealed a sphere of lab-grown meat produced with the DNA sequence from the elephant-like mammal. The spherical creation is between the size of a softball and a volleyball. It was made by using the DNA sequence for mammoth myoglobin, a protein that gives meat its color and flavor, as well as genetic data from African elephant, the mammoth's closest living relative, to fill in the gaps. Then scientists inserted the sequence into cells from a sheep and coaxed them to multiply into 20 billion cells that made up the final meatball. That's right. They grew this meatball in a petri dish, and it's the size of a little bigger than a softball, a little smaller than a volleyball.
It really does look like Meatwad from Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
So
and,
gross.
It's already kind of weird, and it weirds people out when you think about lab-grown meat. And I know we've had this discussion in the past.
I'm
It's been a while.
enthusiastically in support of lab-grown meat.
Yes. He's in support of it. There is something so removed from Mother Nature about the term lab-grown meat.
We got to give it a makeover. The
That
terminology.
I don't know. I don't know. But anyway,
Designer meat. I'm telling you.
Then they slap on woolly mammoth.
They Jurassic Park it. They
Yeah.
Jurassic Park it too.
They do a Jurassic Park burger, and then we're supposed to think this will be good for feeding the population when it gets massive.
Absolutely. But okay, so here's the thing. So just to throw this in, they didn't make it particularly edible, I guess. They said we wanted to get people excited about the future of food being different to potentially what we had before. We thought the mammoth would be a conversation starter, which it is. It's got us talking. It looked like Meatwad. And it's also like, this is an extinct creature. You know what? If it was dodo bird, I may be like, does that taste like chicken? I want to try some dodo bird chicken wings. But what we wanted to do was see if we could create something that was a symbol of a more exciting future that's not only better for us, but also the planet. Today, agriculture uses billions of acres of land, and the greenhouse gases released from food production make up about 30% of global emissions. Cultured meat, or grown meat from animal cells, requires less space and less water than raising livestock does. Because it is created in a lab, cultured meat may also be designed to meet taste and nutritional preferences according to the statement. Taste and nutritional preferences. You could have the most nutritional burger of your life cooked exactly to your taste if you're just willing to acknowledge that they dropped some shit in a petri dish and it grew into a burger and you get to eat it.
Yeah, I think that we're going to have no choice but to end up there at some point in the future.
Or eat bugs.
Yes.
Make your choice.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I don't know. If it comes to the lab-grown burger or the cricket burger, I might go with the lab-grown burger, and all my shit is my reservations will be going out the window.
And this is also my pitch to all the vegetarian people. PETA, this is how we get PETA back after the Oscar Mayer situation.
I don't know.
I'd just like to let you know that lab-grown meat would cause way less animals to be harmed than the livestock in the production of meat, because this is grown in a lab. So it's an improvement there.
I think that lab-grown meat, other people should eat it for a long time, and then we should see what happens to them.
I'm in.
And then let me know. And if everybody's good, no cancerous, anything worse than the shit diet I have now, then
Exactly.
I'm all on it.
I don't know what's going on with the Whoppers I eat. I'm not too up on when I get a spicy chicken sandwich from one of these places, and I'm pretty sure it's just as bad as something that's grown in a completely sanitized, clean lab and in a dish. To me, it's probably even cleaner than what happens to livestock out there. If you've ever read about what happens to livestock, because I had an ex-girlfriend make me read Skinny Bitch in the Kitchen with her, yeah, it's nasty. I didn't eat meat for a a while. It took me a while to get over some of the disgusting shit that I read about. So you know what? Growing it in a petri dish has always sounded kind of appetizing to me. Sounds better. It'll be cleaner.
Oh, I'm still in shock over this one, but I think you got a case there. But I will say this, though. Here's another story to piggyback off of that. I just read that Italy has passed a law because they are now coming out with this bug food all over the place. Uh-huh. Italy's like, no, you don't. They do not want Italian food being synonymous with bugs and shit, and they're not for that. So the law that they passed will require anyone selling that type of food to keep it on the shelf far away from traditional food, to label it with big giant stickers and big giant letters that says this shit contains bugs.
So this is
so
basically
that people don't accidentally eat it.
It's just like the Raekwon story, you know? Like, you can have your weed lounge, but not in view of my church. You can have
be in the
your
same,
bug burgers.
They're going to have it in the
not
store.
In view of my regular
it's like in ShopRite where you got to find the organic section. Here you have to go find the bug section. It can't just be mixed in with the regular food, because the food, they don't want people to eat it by accident.
This is my genuine question for people.
That's how they look down on bug food.
Would you rather eat the cricket burger or a burger that was grown in a petri dish using some cultured cells? And I am curious about the answer to that, because we're closer to this happening than you might think. At the bottom of this article, Vow's food scientists are optimistic about the future of cell-based alternatives to meat products. Currently, cultured meat is only available in Singapore, but companies like Upside Foods and Good Meat have earned clearance for their lab-grown products from the United States Food and Drug Administration. Good old FDA got my back on this one. I want to try some lab-grown meat, just like I tried a Beyond Burger and was like, it's not so bad. That'll probably be my reaction for the first while. And then it's going to be some culinary super New York restaurant where you go in, you type in exactly what you want, boop, bop, beep, bop, boop, and they bring out a burger marbled perfectly to how you want it.
When this turns into those futuristic movies, like where you can just hit
Fifth Element.
Fifth Element style
I don't know if that
food.
was in it, but like that.
Yeah, you just hit the button, like Back to the Future, and you touch the button on the mic, and all of a sudden you got a full cooked meal. I'm with that.
Yeah, I say we work with the AI to figure out how we get that future sooner rather than having sex with the AI. And I think we'll have some dope-ass lab-grown meat.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see a trend for how humanity is going to be gone and overtaken by Skynet. This is happening. This is the thing. We've got morons making stupid laws. We've got good people quitting jobs. We've got assholes, who should be facing penalties, not facing penalties. And we've got some weird shit going on in science.
I don't think the Mammoth Meatball is at all the problem here. I think that's probably the best story.
Probably not the problem. The Mammoth
promising
Mammoth Meatball is light.
I'm trying to eat some dodo meatball. I'm trying to try it. Let's try all the extinct species.
Yes. That's pretty much it on that. Did you want to mention anything on that, or do you want to save this one for a separate?
We could do that as a separate
piece. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, with that, I guess that's going to wrap up the show for this week, episode 84 TFP. Thank you as always for tuning in. If you made it this far and you haven't hit the subscribe button, that's silly. Hit the subscribe button for us.
Hit the like button, comment, shout out. We asked some questions
here.
Cricket burger, lab grown burger. Which do you want?
Yeah, and shout out to Vamanonos on the production, and shout out to Big Dane, Combat Fit Club,
Great
for
job,
doing his thing last night on the debut. JhanBoom will be back with us soon. Shout out to JhanBoom.
Shout out to my dude.
And anybody you want to sign off to?
Just thank you to everybody that is subscribed and has been listening. It's really dope, and I appreciate all the encouragement people have sent us and topic ideas, all of that. We appreciate all of you guys.
Peace.
You're listening to TFP, the fan's perspective. perspective.